My car died at 8:47 p.m. on a stretch of I-77 that had no business being so dark. The engine coughed once, twice, then nothing. I coasted to the shoulder and sat there in the silence, watching my dashboard lights fade out. No cell service, no passing cars. Just the wind moving through the trees and the faint, flickering glow of a neon sign maybe half a mile ahead. The Pines. Vacancy, it said. The P went dark every few seconds, then came back. I remember thinking, at least I won't freeze. I didn't know that was the least of my problems. I tried the key again. Nothing. Checked the fuel gauge. Full. I popped the hood, got out, and stared at the engine the way men do when they know nothing about engines. The cold was immediate, sharper than I'd packed for. Light jacket, one layer underneath, mountain wind that went through both like paper. I grabbed my overnight bag from the back seat and started walking. The access road broke off from the highway shoulder a quarter mile up. 2 dirt tracks with grass growing down the middle, angled down into a hollow between 2 steep ridges. Trees pressed close on either side. My phone flashlight lit maybe 10 feet ahead, and beyond that was just dark, the kind that has texture. The motel appeared at the bottom of the slope. Single-story, L-shaped, painted white once, now the color of old bone. 8 doors along the face of it, each with a small yellow light above, half burned out. The neon sign mounted on a pole, wiring held with electrical tape. The parking lot was cracked asphalt with weeds in the fissures. One vehicle sat near the office. A pickup truck, older model, Virginia plates, backed in like the driver wanted a fast exit. The place communicated several things at once. Isolation, neglect, the quiet that settles over a location after it's been mostly forgotten. It also communicated shelter, which was currently the only thing I cared about. The office door opened with a dull bell chime. Inside, cramped, warm from a wood stove in the corner. A scarred wooden counter. Behind it, a corkboard covered in handwritten notes. Phone numbers, reminders, papers pinned at odd angles. A TV on a shelf showing static, volume low. The smell was wood smoke, and underneath it, mildew and old paper. The man behind the counter was watching the static when I walked in. He turned slowly, the way people do when they've stopped being surprised. Mid-70s, heavy through the shoulders, white hair cropped short, deep-cut lines in his face, pale eyes that were hard to read. He didn't smile. "Car broke down," I said. "Half a mile up on the highway. I need a room." He looked at me for a moment without answering. "Cash or card?" he said, not a question. "Card." "Cash only." I had $40. He took the bills without counting them and put them in a metal box. He pulled a key off the pegboard behind him. Red plastic diamond, room 4, and set it on the counter. "Checkout is at dawn," he said. "Around 6:30? Leave when the sky gets light. Don't wait for the sun to be fully up, just get light." I picked up the key. "Is there a garage in town for the car?" 20 miles to Halling. There's one on the main road." I was almost to the door when he said, "Wait," and reached under the counter. He came up with a laminated card, rounded corners, half-sheet size, the lamination peeling at one edge. He set it on the counter and pushed it toward me with 2 fingers. "Read this," he said. "Follow it. Don't call me unless the room catches fire." I picked it up and skimmed it. 6 numbered rules: door, window, phone, mirror, gaps, last hour. "Is this a local thing?" I said. "A joke for city visitors?" He looked at me, steady, flat, not amused. "You'll know soon enough," he said. "Leave at dawn. Don't stay for breakfast." I waited for the punchline. It didn't come. He turned back to the television. I took the card and went to find room 4. It was at the far end of the L, the last door before the building turned. The key fit. I pushed it open and cold air hit me from inside. Colder than outside somehow, which didn't make sense. I found the light switch. A single bare bulb gave a warm yellow glow that made everything look worn. Small room, A single bed with a dark green comforter, slightly lumpy, a nightstand with a lamp and a rotary phone, heavy black plastic, old, a low dresser with a mirror above it, a window on the parking lot wall, curtains that had once been white, a baseboard heater against the far wall. I turned the dial and it rattled to life, eventually settling to a low hum. The wallpaper was faded beige floral, peeling at the corners. Near the window, a section had lifted away and curled slightly, like a page trying to turn. The carpet was dark brown, industrial, worn flat along the path from door to bed. Old smoke and mildew. The bathroom was small, toilet, sink, faded fish print shower curtain. The fluorescent light above the mirror buzzed before it caught. The mirror itself was standard, silver backing starting to spot at the edges. The faucet ran cold a long time before it warmed up. I sat on the edge of the bed and read the card properly. The rule of the door: lock the deadbolt, slide the chain. Do not open the door for anyone until sunrise, not for the owner, not for the police, not for a woman crying, not for a child, not for anything that sounds like someone you love. The door is the only barrier. Once it opens, it's already too late. The rule of the window: keep the curtains closed. If you see a face at the window, do not look directly at it. Turn off the lights, back away slowly. It cannot see you if you do not see it. It only knows you're there if you look. The rule of the phone: the phone in the room will ring. It will ring 3 times. On the 4th ring, you must pick it up. Do not speak. Listen. When the voice stops, hang up. If you do not pick up by the 5th ring, the hollow man will know you are afraid. Fear is an invitation. The rule of the mirror: cover the bathroom mirror. Use the towel, the sheet, anything. Do not look at your reflection after midnight. If you do, you will see it standing behind you. It will be closer than you think. The rule of the gaps: check the gaps, under the door, the window frame, the vent in the bathroom. The hollow man can fit through any gap wider than 2 fingers. If you see fingers, do not scream. Do not run. Pour salt across the threshold. It will retreat. The rule of the last hour: from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m., the hollow man is strongest. It will test you. It will try to make you open the door. It will use every voice, every trick. Do not sleep. Do not let your eyes close. At 5 a.m., it will retreat to prepare for the next guest. You will have until sunrise to leave. Do not stay for breakfast. Below the rules, in handwriting: the owner knows. Do not ask questions. Follow these exactly. Leave at dawn. Do not look back. I read it twice and then laughed. Short, quiet, the kind that comes out when you're slightly embarrassed by your own reaction. Because my first reaction, genuinely, had been a small spike of unease, which I found ridiculous. I was 28, a graphic designer from Columbus, a man with a podcast library and strong opinions about font kerning. I'd just been spooked by a laminated card. Hollow man, the phone, the mirror, the gaps. It was clearly a bit for city visitors. Some quirky regional tradition, the mountain version of a ghost tour. I'd designed a website for a bed and breakfast in Pennsylvania that leaned into its supposed haunting. Ghost stories were good for business. The old man probably kept a mental log of reactions. I set the card on the nightstand, found my granola bar, and ate it sitting on the edge of the bed. Honey oat. Cardboard with better PR than it deserved. I tried my phone. 1 bar flickered in and out, never resolving. I typed a message to Marcus in Columbus and watched it sit unsent in the outbox for 2 minutes. The TV found a local news channel. Weather radar. Storm system moving up from Tennessee. Snow expected in the mountains by early morning. My car dead on the shoulder. Snow coming. I stretched out on top of the comforter with my shoes still on and stared at the water stain on the ceiling. It was roughly the shape of Florida. I lay there, and listened to the heater hum and thought about my interview tomorrow afternoon in Asheville and whether I could get a tow early enough to still make it. The motel was completely silent outside my door. Not peaceful quiet, emptied out quiet. The kind of silence that doesn't have any ambient life in it. No distant cars, no animals, nothing from the other rooms. Just the heater and the wind and the dark hollow outside. I checked my watch. 10:28 p.m. 7.5 hours until dawn. I was deciding whether to try to sleep when I heard the footsteps. They came from outside, on the concrete walkway running along the front of the building, slow and even. Deliberate. That was the word for them. Not someone walking to a destination, but someone walking with intention. They came from the direction of the office, toward my end of the building. They stopped outside my door. I sat up slowly and looked at the door. The deadbolt was turned, the chain slid across. I'd done that automatically when I came in, a habit from years of cheap motels where the locks feel optional. The gap under the door showed a thin slice of yellow light from outside. No knock, no voice. The footsteps didn't continue past my room. They had arrived and simply stopped. I got up and crossed to the door. I put my eye to the peephole. The walkway was empty. The yellow light above my door lit a small oval of concrete. No one in either direction. The parking lot was still, the pickup truck exactly where it had been. I stepped back and waited. 30 seconds, then a minute. Nothing. Footsteps don't just stop. They continue, or they come with a knock, or the person turns around. These had done none of those things. They had arrived outside my door and ceased, and the hallway was empty. I told myself it was the old man on some kind of round. I told myself mountain acoustics did strange things with sound, that maybe the steps had come from somewhere else entirely. I told myself the peephole had distortion, and I'd just missed someone passing out of frame. I got back on the bed and found that I believed most of it. Mostly. Then the phone rang. The sound filled the room. A real mechanical bell. The kind that vibrates the housing, loud and sudden. I sat straight up and knocked the granola bar wrapper off the nightstand. The phone sat there, heavy and black, and rang a second time. Rule 3 came back to me like a reflex. The phone in the room will ring. It will ring 3 times. On the 4th ring, you must pick it up. I looked at the clock on the nightstand. 11:03 p.m. The phone rang a 3rd time. My hand moved before I'd fully decided. On the 4th ring, I picked up the receiver and held it to my ear and said nothing. Breathing first. Slow and even, slightly wet, like air moving through something that was not quite lungs. I held the line and listened. The breathing continued without changing. Then it shifted, deepened, slowed, and what came next was technically a voice, but wrong in its texture. Dry, rustling, like dead leaves turning over each other in a gutter. You shouldn't have stopped here. A click, clean and final. The line went dead. I held the receiver to my ear for a moment after, listening to the silence that replaced those words. Then I set it back in the cradle. My hands were shaking. Not dramatically. Just the fine tremor that shows up when adrenaline arrives at a situation and isn't sure what to do with itself. I sat with my hands on my knees and looked at the phone. I looked at the card. For a full minute, I didn't move. The voice. The footsteps that went nowhere. The empty hallway. The parking lot with one truck and no people, and a road 20 minutes behind me with no signal and no passing cars. The old man who didn't smile and handed me 6 rules he wouldn't explain. I got up and checked the deadbolt, already locked. I ran the chain through its slot and pressed it. I checked the window curtains, already closed, but I pressed the edges down anyway. I went to the bathroom. The mirror hung above the sink, spotted at its edges, the fluorescent tube humming steadily. Rule 4. I took the hand towel from the rack. Thin, rough, washed 400 times, and draped it over the top of the mirror until the glass was covered. I went back to the main room and picked up the card one more time. All 6 rules. Then the handwritten note. The owner knows. Do not ask questions. Follow these exactly. Leave at dawn. Do not look back. I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in backwoods folklore or mountain entities or any of that. I approach the world the way I approach a design brief. Find the logic underneath it. Follow the logic. Produce a result. There is always a logic. But I was alone in a hollow with no car and no signal, and a voice like dead leaves had just told me I shouldn't have stopped here, and footsteps had arrived outside my door and hadn't walked away. The rules were probably nothing. The whole card was probably some elaborate local tradition. But I was going to follow every single rule on it anyway, because I was leaving at dawn regardless, and following 6 strange instructions cost me nothing, and not following them, on the slim, irrational, completely absurd chance that they mattered, was a cost I didn't want to find out the price of. I set the card back on the nightstand where I could see it from the bed. I sat back against the headboard with my jacket back on and looked at the door. 7 hours until light. I was going to be awake for all of them. The card said midnight was when it started. I believed it at about 11:58. I'd been sitting against the headboard for nearly an hour, jacket on, shoes on, the laminated card on the nightstand where I could read it without picking it up. The TV was still running. I'd left it on for the noise, for something that sounded like the rest of the world. The baseboard heater hummed. The room smelled like old smoke and whatever cleaning product someone had used on the carpet the previous decade. I was tired. That was the thing nobody tells you about fear. It's exhausting. The adrenaline from the phone call had burned off somewhere around midnight, leaving me hollow and heavy-eyed and very aware that I had roughly 6 more hours to go before the sky got light. I kept checking my phone clock. 11:41, 11:49, 11:55. I was staring at the water stain on the ceiling when the knock came. 3 sharp raps on the door. Deliberate. I sat up straight. My heart skipped and made up for it immediately. A woman's voice came through the door, frantic, breathy, the kind that's been crying or running or both. Please, please let me in. Someone's following me. Please, I just need... Please open the door. Rule 1. Do not open the door for anyone until sunrise, not for a woman crying. I stayed where I was and said nothing. Please. The voice cracked on the word. I can hear him behind me. Please, just let me in. I'm not going to hurt you. I just need somewhere safe. I pressed my back against the headboard and watched the door handle. It didn't move yet. The voice kept cycling. The same words, the desperation building by small increments. Whoever or whatever was doing it had the cadence of panic right. The way the breathing hitched between sentences, the way please got shorter each time, less word and more sound. I kept my mouth shut and counted the roses on the wallpaper. The knocking came harder. Then the door handle moved, slow, testing. The deadbolt held. The chain hung in its slot, undisturbed. Then the voice dropped. Not gradually. It dropped like a needle off a record. One register, then another. Almost nothing in between. The woman's voice was gone, and in its place was a man's voice. Older, flat, the kind used to giving instructions. Open the door. It's the owner. There's been an accident on the access road. I need to check the rooms. Some part of my brain that hadn't caught up thought it was almost funny. The way it had just given up on the woman and tried something else, like changing channels. Like it had a stack of voices and was flipping through them. Not for the owner. I pressed back against the wall and watched the door handle jiggle, methodically, testing each increment of give. Then it stopped. The silence that followed was the kind you notice, not the absence of sound. There was still the heater, still the TV static, but the absence of that specific pressure from outside. I exhaled slowly through my nose. Then the curtain moved, a shift in the fabric near the left edge, where it met the wall. Like something outside had pressed against the glass. I went still. Rule 2. Keep the curtains closed. If you see a face at the window, do not look directly at it. Turn off the lights. Back away slowly. I reached over and switched off the lamp. The TV cast the room in a dim, shifting gray. I slid off the bed onto the floor and stayed low. The curtain moved again, more deliberately. The fabric pushed inward slightly, the outline of something pressing against the glass from outside. I kept my eyes at an angle to it, the way you look at something in peripheral vision at night to see it better. I didn't look directly. In my peripheral vision, I could see the shape, a face, or the suggestion of one, pressed against the glass. Pale, smooth, close enough that I should have been able to see features. There weren't any, just a pale oval leaning against the pane. And below it, at the curtain's edge, where the fabric didn't quite meet the sill, a hand. The fingers were wrong. Too long. The kind of length your brain tries to remeasure because it must be wrong. They moved slowly along the bottom of the window frame, feeling for the gap between the glass and the sill. Patient, searching. I stayed on the floor and did not make a sound. Rule 5. The hollow man can fit through any gap wider than 2 fingers. Pour salt across the threshold. It will retreat. Salt. The granola bar from earlier. There had been 2 small paper packets in the front pocket of my bag, the kind that comes with gas station food. I hadn't used them. I crawled toward the bag on the dresser, moving slowly. The TV static shifted, the room went briefly brighter, and I pressed flat. Then dimmed again, and I kept moving. The zipper sounded like a gunshot. I held still. The shape at the window didn't react, or if it did, I couldn't tell from the floor. The fingers kept their slow movement along the sill. I got the front pocket open and felt around. Earphone, receipt, the flat paper of a salt packet, then a second one underneath. 2 packets. I didn't know if it was enough. I crawled back to the wall beneath the window, staying below the sill level, and reached up without lifting my head. I pulled the curtain edge aside just enough to reach the sill and poured both packets in a line, left to right, as even as I could manage with shaking hands. For a moment, nothing. Then a sound like water on a hot pan. A brief, sharp hiss. And then something that was not quite a sound and not quite a feeling. More like a pressure releasing. The way a room changes when someone storms out of it. The fingers withdrew. I pulled the curtain tight against the sill and held it. The shape moved back from the glass. The curtain went still. The window went dark. I stayed on the floor for a long time after that. The TV murmured, the heater hummed. Outside, the wind moved through the hollow. I checked my phone. 12:41 a.m. I got up slowly, back to the window, and turned the lamp on. The room was exactly as I'd left it. I went through my bag for anything else I could use. My lighter, a Bic, half full, a travel-sized can of deodorant, a pocket notebook and pen, no more salt. I put the lighter in my jacket pocket and started checking the gaps. The card said to check under the door, the window frame, and the bathroom vent. The windowsill was salted. The door gap was maybe half an inch. I looked and saw nothing but the thin orange light from outside. I pressed a rolled bath towel against the bottom of the door and stood up. The bathroom vent. I hadn't looked at it yet. It was in the ceiling above the shower. A standard metal grate, 6 inches square. I stood under it and looked up. The grate was screwed in place. Behind it, dark. I listened. Nothing moved in the duct. I went back to the main room and sat on the bed with the card. 1:09 a.m. 2 hours since the knock. Nearly an hour since the window. The motel was quiet again. The TV had settled on a channel that was mostly static with occasional fragments of a weather broadcast. I caught the word accumulation twice before the signal dissolved. I was thinking about the job interview I was not going to make. I was thinking about my car on the shoulder with snow coming. I was thinking about Marcus back in Columbus, who had probably noticed by now that my text hadn't delivered and was doing exactly nothing about it. I thought about all my completely normal problems and how much I would have preferred to be dealing with them. The phone rang. I looked at the clock. 1:30 a.m. exactly. One ring. Silence. I stared at the phone. Rule 3 said it would ring 3 times and I had to pick up on the 4th. That was how it worked. That was what happened the first time. The phone rang twice. Silence. My mouth went dry. This was wrong. The pattern was wrong. I waited. The phone sat on the nightstand and did nothing. The silence stretched out. The phone rang a 3rd time. Silence. No 4th ring. I sat with my hands in my lap and did not pick up because the rule said 4th ring and there was no 4th ring. 1, stop. 2, stop. 3, stop. That wasn't the sequence. Something was off. The phone did not ring again. I sat there trying to work out the logic. The rule said to pick up on 4. The rule also said if I didn't pick up by the 5th ring, it would know I was afraid. There was no 5th ring, barely even a 4th. So had I broken the rule? The card didn't cover irregular patterns. I'd made a judgment call and I didn't know if it was the right one, and not knowing I was beginning to understand exactly the point. I set the card face down on the nightstand. I didn't want to look at it. 1:48 a.m. I turned the TV off. The room felt smaller without it. Then I heard the dripping, coming from the bathroom. A single drop, every 2 seconds, perfectly even. I hadn't left any water running. I'd checked twice. I sat still and counted. 1, 2, 3, 2 even for a faucet. 2 regular. I went to the bathroom door and pressed my ear to it. The dripping continued. I opened the door. The fluorescent light buzzed and caught. The mirror was still covered. The sink was dry, both taps closed. The shower was dry. The floor was dry. Nothing was dripping. I stood in the doorway and listened. Drip, drip, drip. Inside the wall, behind the tile, somewhere in the plasterboard, I pressed my palm against the wall beside the sink. Cold tile. The sound right there, just behind the surface, and nothing on either side of the wall was wet. I went back to the main room and sat on the bed and tried to ignore it. I couldn't. A single drop at a regular interval is designed by the structure of human attention to be impossible to ignore. Drip, drip, drip. I pressed my palms over my ears. The sound didn't dampen. Same volume, same interval, which meant it wasn't in the bathroom wall. The sound was in my head. I sat on the edge of the bed with my hands over my ears, and the dripping went on. Same pace, same interval, same exact space between each one. I took my hands away. Still there. I went back to the bathroom. Still there. Same volume, whether I was 6 inches from the wall or standing in the middle of the main room. I understood then what was happening. Not a pipe, not a faucet. Something doing what it had been doing all night in different ways. Testing. The voices at the door, the face at the window, the phone's wrong rhythm. And now this. A sound with no source that followed me when I moved, that couldn't be blocked or traced or fixed. It was learning what bothered me, and it was getting better at it. I took my hands down and looked at the door and the covered window and the nightstand where the card lay face down. 2:06 a.m., almost an hour until 3 a.m., when Rule 6 said it would get worse. Whatever had spent 2 hours finding new angles, voice, face, phone, sound, was apparently just warming up. I picked the card up and set it face forward on the nightstand where I could see it. The dripping continued, even, patient. 1 drop at a time. I didn't cover my ears again. I let it go on and tried to hold the shape of my own mind against it, the way you hold your footing on a slope. Not fighting, just not giving any ground. Outside, the wind came down through the hollow. Somewhere above the ridge, snow was beginning to fall through the dark. It had been a long night already. It was going to get longer. The dripping stopped at 2:14 a.m. Just like that. One drop, then nothing. The way a clock stops mid-tick. I sat on the edge of the bed in the sudden quiet and waited for it to come back. It didn't. The heater hummed. The room held its cold. The silence that replaced the dripping was, somehow, worse than the dripping had been. At least the dripping had been something I could track, something I could count. This was just nothing, and nothing meant it had moved on to whatever came next. I'd spent the past hour sitting with it, not fighting it, holding my footing on the slope, the way I'd decided toward the end of the night's slow, awful crawl. And it had worked, more or less. I hadn't covered my ears again. I'd let it go on. And now, it had stopped, and I was sitting here with the lamp on low and my lighter in my jacket pocket and no salt left, and a covered bathroom mirror and roughly 4 hours of fear burning in my chest like a low, steady fire. 2:14 became 2:22. Nothing happened. The motel creaked in the cold, the frame settling, the roof contracting. Normal sounds, the kind your brain files under things to be afraid of at 2 a.m, even when they aren't. I checked my phone. Still no signal. Still 2:24 a.m. when I looked again 30 seconds later, because time was doing what it does when you're waiting for something bad. I was rubbing my eyes with the heels of my hands when the voice came. It came from outside the door, like all the others, but this one was different before I could even process why. The woman's voice at midnight had been convincing but slightly off, the desperation too evenly distributed. The owner's voice had been flat and obvious. Those I'd been able to hold at arm's length without much trouble. This one was my mother's voice. "Daniel, baby, please let me in. I'm so cold." I put my hands flat on my knees and did not move. I knew. I want to be clear about this. From the first syllable, I knew it was not her. She was home in Dayton, in the house I grew up in, probably asleep in front of the TV the way she always is on weeknights. I knew the thing outside was cycling through its inventory until it landed on something that would make me open the door. I knew all of that, and I held on to all of that. But the voice was right. Not approximately right. Exactly right. The way she draws out the first syllable of my name when she's worried, the slight lift at the end of it, the specific softness on baby that she stopped saying out loud around the time I was 14 but never fully dropped, the register of her nighttime voice, quieter than her daytime voice, like she didn't want to wake the house up. "Please," the voice said. "I drove all this way. I was so worried about you. Why won't you let me in?" Do not open the door for anything that sounds like someone you love. I pressed my hands over my ears. The voice came through anyway. Same volume. Like my palms weren't there. I stood up and moved to the far corner of the room, the one between the bathroom wall and the back of the dresser. I sat down on the floor with my back against the angle where the walls met, knees up, hands still over my ears. The voice kept going. It cycled through the same few lines, each pass slightly different in texture. Wearier on the second round, softer on the third, more pained on the fourth. "I'm right here. I'm your mother. You can hear me. I know you can." A pause, like she was trying not to cry. "Why won't you let me in?" I held out as long as I could, long enough for the voice to run through its cycle 3 or 4 times. Long enough for some part of my brain to start filling in details it had no business filling in, imagining the drive from Dayton, wondering if I'd told anyone where I'd stopped for the night, remembering that I hadn't. Long enough to feel the first real pull of it, the instinct that doesn't listen to logic, that just wants to open the door because of what's standing outside it. I pressed my back hard against the corner and I whispered, "Go away." 2 words. Barely sound at all. more breath than voice. The voice stopped. 1 full second of silence. And then the door handle went violent. Not the slow, methodical testing from earlier in the night. This was a full-force rattle. The handle working up and down fast and hard, the door shaking in its frame with each yank. The deadbolt held, the chain swung and caught in its slot, but the door frame groaned in a way that didn't sound temporary, a deep creak of wood being asked to do more than it was built for. I was on my feet before I'd decided to stand. The rattling became pounding, flat, heavy impacts one after another, each one landing in the same spot just left of center on the door. It wasn't a fist, wrong sound for a fist, too solid and too even, like something dense being driven into the wood repeatedly without fatigue. The door bowed slightly with each blow, not enough to give, but enough to show me it wasn't permanent. I grabbed the nightstand, lamp, phone, and card scattered to the floor, and dragged it across the carpet to block the door, then the chair from the corner of the room, then the small table that sat under the window. I built the stack in about 2 minutes, not thinking past each piece, just building the wall between me and the outside. The pounding continued through all of it. Same rhythm, same force. It was not trying to break the door down in a hurry. It was just continuing, the way rain continues. I looked through the peephole. The walkway was empty. The yellow light above my door lit the small oval of concrete outside. No one there. The pounding was coming from directly in front of me, but the peephole showed nothing. I stepped back. I stood in the middle of the room with all my furniture piled against the door and my lighter in my hand, and I thought, very clearly, it is real. Whatever it is real, and it is outside this door, and the only thing between me and it is wood and a chain not rated for this. Then from the bathroom I heard something crack. A single sharp sound, clean and sudden. Then a smaller sound right after, like an echo slightly delayed. The pounding stopped. I turned and looked at the bathroom. Dark inside except for the light spilling in from the lamp behind me. Every reasonable instinct said to stay in the main room, keep my eyes on the door. The bathroom was secondary. Whatever had cracked was probably not worth knowing about. I went in anyway. The fluorescent light buzzed before it caught. The hand towel I'd hung over the mirror was on the floor. The top edge had slipped off the frame and the towel had dropped clean, and the mirror behind it was cracked. Not shattered. Webbed the way a windshield looks after impact. Fracture lines spreading from a point near the center left across the full face of the glass. Still mounted, still in the frame, but cracked, like something had hit it from behind. In the fractured segments of glass, I saw the room behind me. About 1 second passed. In that second, I registered the bathroom doorway, the angle of the main room through it, the lamp on the floor where it had fallen from the nightstand, and standing in the center of the main room, right where I had been standing 40 seconds ago, a figure. Tall, perfectly still. Long coat, and where the face should have been, a smooth, pale surface with nothing on it. No eyes, no mouth, nothing. Rule 4. Do not look at your reflection after midnight. If you do, you will see it standing behind you. I turned away, hard and fast, the full-body decision. Eyes to the tile floor, the faded fish curtain, the dry porcelain of the tub. I did not look back at the mirror. The image was already in my head. The smooth face, the coat, the absolute stillness of something that had nowhere else to be and all night to be there. I backed out of the bathroom and pulled the door shut behind me. My hands were shaking badly enough that holding the lighter was an effort. I pressed my back to the wall next to the bathroom door and tried to breathe slowly and think past the image burned behind my eyes. The pounding had stopped while I was in the bathroom. The room was quiet. I looked at the floor in front of the door. Something was sliding under it. Fingers. Pale, long, coming through the gap where the bath towel I'd wedged there had been pushed aside. They moved slowly, the tips bending at joints that were too many, and they searched the carpet just inside the threshold, left, then right, slow and deliberate, feeling their way. They reached the salt line, or where it had been. When I'd dragged the nightstand across the floor earlier, I'd cut through it. The line was broken in at least 2 places. The fingers moved through the gaps without pausing. No hiss, no retreat, no resistance, no salt. The fingers kept coming. They reached further in. 2 of them found the inside face of the door and began curling upward along it, moving toward the handle from the inside. I didn't scream. The card said, "Don't scream," and anyway, my throat had closed. I went to the bathroom on reflex, not decision. The shelf above the toilet, travel deodorant, aerosol, still mostly full. I grabbed it. Came back to the door. Crouched down at the gap. Lighter in my right hand, can point it at the opening. The fingers were still there, 2 of them moving up the inside of the door toward the handle. I held the nozzle at the gap, pressed the lighter flame in front of it, hit the button. The jet lasted 2 seconds. Thin, orange, 8 inches. It went under the door. It found something. What came back was a sound I still don't have a clean word for. Somewhere between a screech and the snap of a green branch. High at the start, dropping fast, then cut off clean. The fingers vanished. Not slowly. There and then, not there. I stayed crouched at the door with the empty can in one hand and the lighter in the other. 2:58 a.m. The pounding didn't come back. The fingers didn't come back. The chain held. The furniture held. The room was quiet. I moved to the far corner, back against the angle between the dresser and the bathroom wall, the lowest point in the room. I sat down on the floor with the lighter in my right hand and the empty can in my left. Useless now, but I held it anyway. The way you hold on to something that worked once, even after it stops. 3 a.m. For about 1 minute, I was almost relieved. Then I remembered what the card said about 3 a.m., and relief started to look like the wrong reaction entirely. The knocking stops. The scratching stops. The silence is worse than the noise. The card had not been wrong yet. I felt it before I heard it. A pressure behind my eyes, low and steady. A hum that wasn't the baseboard heater and wasn't the building settling. Something below the range of sound, but not below the range of feeling. And then the whispers started. Not from outside the door. From everywhere. The walls, the floor, the ceiling directly above my head. Low and close, like the room itself was speaking. Open the door. Just a crack. Just a look. I pressed back into the corner and said nothing. "We're so cold. We're so hungry. You've been so careful all night. Just this once. Just open the door and let us in out of the cold." The wallpaper across the room had been peeling at the seam near the window since I arrived. That lifted section I'd noticed the first time I turned the light on. Now it moved. Not falling, not a draft. Slowly pressing outward from the wall, the way a palm pushes at a sheet from the other side. The raised edges caught the lamplight differently, the shadows shifting in the fold of the lifted paper, and in those shadows I could see, in my peripheral vision, not directly, the shape of a face. Smooth, no features, watching from inside the surface of the wall. I did not look at it directly. I looked at the door and started counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. "You know your name now," the whispers said from somewhere that wasn't any one place. "Soon you won't need it." I kept counting. I held the lighter. I held the empty can. I kept my back against the corner and my eyes off the wallpaper, and I did not move, and I did not speak. The face at the edge of my vision stayed where it was, patient, the way everything here was patient. The whispers ran low and steady, trying each angle the way water tries a surface for a way through. The room breathed around me, the walls slightly closer than they'd been at 9 o'clock when I first walked in and laughed at a laminated card. 3:19 a.m., 1 hour and 41 minutes until the card said it would stop. I started counting again from the beginning. 1, 2, 3. I counted to somewhere past 400 before the whispers changed. They'd been running steady since 3 a.m. Low, sourceless, cycling through the same phrases in different arrangements. Open the door. Let us in. We're so cold. I'd stopped trying to block them out after the first 20 minutes and just sat in my corner with the lighter in my hand and let them go. The face in the wallpaper stayed at the edge of my vision the whole time, patient as furniture, watching from the fold of the peeling seam. I didn't look at it directly. I counted instead. It helped. Barely, but barely was enough. 3:30 a.m. came and went. Then 3:45. The way time moved in that room, stretched and slow, each minute costing more than the last. 4 a.m. felt like a destination you walk toward for a long time before it gets any closer. At 4:01, the whispers stopped. Clean stop, like someone cutting a cord. The room went quiet. Heater, wind coming down the hollow, the creak of the building in the cold. I stayed in my corner and didn't move, because the last time everything went quiet, I'd ended up with fingers coming in under the door. I waited. 1 minute, 2. The wallpaper face had gone too. Just peeling paper now, just shadows in the fold, nothing looking back. For one very stupid and very brief moment, I thought it might be over. Then I heard the key in the lock. Not the door handle, not pounding. The keyhole. The specific, unmistakable sound of a key being inserted and turned. The tumbler rolling over, the bolt sliding, the click of the deadbolt disengaging from the locked position. My deadbolt. The one I had turned when I checked in. The one I had confirmed twice through the course of the night. Turning from the outside. I was on my feet and across the room before I'd decided to stand up. I hit the stacked furniture with both hands and pressed into it. The deadbolt had already turned. The chain was the only thing left between me and whatever was outside. The door pushed inward a fraction. Just a fraction. The chain caught immediately, the gap no wider than 2 inches. Through it came a hand, not fingers under the door, a full hand, pale, wrist coming through the gap at an angle that the width of the opening shouldn't have allowed. The fingers were long, too many joints, tapering at the tips, and they moved with the specific, unhurried purpose of something that knows exactly what it's looking for. They found the chain, closed around it. I watched the metal links begin to deform, not snapping, not pulling, just slowly pressing out of their oval shape the way foil presses when you grip it. I grabbed the fire extinguisher from under the bed, small red canister, the standard kind in a bracket under the bed frame that I'd registered when I first looked around the room and then promptly forgot about. I worked it free of the bracket, got both hands on it, and swung it at the hand on the chain. The fingers released the chain for a moment. I swung again. The hand pulled back slightly, then came back from a new angle. I swung a third time. On the fourth hit, the fingers closed around the extinguisher body itself, and I felt the metal deform slightly under the grip. Not a crush, just a compression. The kind that tells you whatever is doing, this is not working hard at it. I yanked the canister back and swung again, and this time the hand pulled all the way through the gap and the door pressed back into its frame. I checked the chain. 2 links were visibly bent, the metal pressed thin, still in its slot, still holding, but it looked the way things look right before they stop holding, strained and reluctant, doing it on stubbornness alone. I pressed the nightstand harder into the door and sat on the edge of it with the extinguisher across my knees. 4:09 a.m., 51 minutes to go. The voice came back at 4:12. Not my mother's voice, not the woman's, not the owner's flat tone. Something older and lower, not coming from the door or the window, but from everywhere at once. Walls, ceiling, floor, the same sourceless quality as the whispers, but more focused, like it was done with hints. Let me in, I'll make it quick. You won't feel it for long." I held the extinguisher and said nothing. "I'll wear you well. You're young. You have a good face. I'll take care of it." I looked at my phone on the floor near the bathroom door. 4:14. 46 minutes. "You're tired. I can see how tired you are. You've been so careful all night and you're exhausted. Just close your eyes for a moment. Just rest. I'll be here when you open them." That one was the most dangerous thing it had said all night. Not because it frightened me, because it was completely accurate. I was tired in a way that had passed through ordinary exhaustion into something structural. A tiredness in the joints, behind the eyes, in the part of the brain that makes decisions. My vision kept wanting to blur at the edges, the lamplight developing a soft haze around it that I recognized as my body starting to shut itself down. Do not sleep. Do not let your eyes close. I reached down and picked up the room key off the floor. Red plastic diamond, room 4, the one the owner had handed me roughly 7 hours ago when this started. I pressed the edge of it into my palm, not hard enough to cut. Hard enough to keep the nerve endings active, a physical anchor, something a college roommate had taught me during finals week when the stakes were nothing like this. The voice continued, low and even, cycling through its angles, sometimes from directly behind me. I didn't turn around. Once from inside the bathroom, through the closed door. I didn't go check. I sat on the nightstand with the key in my palm and kept my eyes on the chain. 4:23 a.m. The door moved again, not pounding, not the key, a slow, steady, even pressure. Something leaning into it from outside with its full weight, no hurry, just constant force. The furniture stack shifted an inch, the chain went taut, the bent links groaned. I put both feet flat on the floor and pressed my back into the nightstand. The door pushed against me. I pushed back. For a couple of minutes, it was just that. Two forces, neither giving. The chain held at the weakened links by what felt like the stubbornness of metal alone. "You're alone out here," the voice said. "No one knows where you are. No one is coming." Both true. Marcus hadn't heard from me. My car was still on the highway shoulder. Nobody knew I was in this hollow. I knew the voice was using something real to reach me, and I knew that knowing that didn't make it less effective, and I pressed back against the door and breathed and held on. 4:31 a.m. The pressure on the door released, the nightstand stopped fighting me, and I nearly pitched forward onto the floor. Silence. I counted to 140 before the voice came back. Quieter this time, almost gentle. "You've done so well. You're almost there. Just open the door, just for a moment. Then it's done." 4:38 a.m., 22 minutes. I understand that 22 minutes is not a long time, but I had been in that room since 9 o'clock the previous evening, and in the corner since 3 in the morning, and the distance between 4:38 and 5 o'clock felt the way the last mile of a long walk feels, longer than everything before it combined. The door pushed again, softer. Just testing. The chain held. 4:47. The voice went quiet. Just the heater. Just the wind. I sat on the nightstand and watched the door and did not close my eyes and pressed the key into my palm. 4:51. 9 minutes. 4:53. The deadbolt was tried again, one sharp attempt, then released. Then one hard pull on the chain, the bent links giving a high, thin note. They held. 4:55. The voice won last time, right at the door. Not from everywhere. From just outside, close, quiet, direct. "I'll be here for the next one. And the one after. There's always a next one." 4:58. 4:59. The pressure stopped. Not gradually. Clean, like everything else in this place, stopped clean. The way the whispers had stopped. The way the dripping had stopped. The way the pounding had stopped. One moment it was there. The next, it wasn't. 5 a.m. I didn't move for 5 minutes. I sat on the nightstand and counted to 300. Slowly. Every number. I wasn't going to trust a quiet room until I'd confirmed the time. 5:05. Outside the curtains, the dark had shifted from black to deep blue-gray, the color of the sky about 40 minutes before proper sunrise, pre-dawn, close. I got up. My legs were bad, stiff and heavy from the hours on the floor and then the nightstand. I gave myself a moment. I shifted the furniture away from the door, one piece at a time. Nightstand, chair, table. The card had fallen off the nightstand during the pounding and was on the floor near the bathroom door. I picked it up without reading it and put it in my bag. I looked around the room once. Lamp on the floor. Cracked bathroom door. Towel piled where it had fallen. Bent chain in its slot. The wallpaper with its lifted seam, just peeling paper now. No face in it. I unclipped the chain, turned the deadbolt, opened the door. The walkway was empty. The yellow light above my door was still burning. The parking lot held the pickup with Virginia plates, snow on the hood now. An inch of it, undisturbed. The neon sign buzzed at the front of the lot, the P still going dark and coming back. The pines. Vacancy. The ridges on either side of the hollow were dark shapes against a sky going from gray to lighter gray at the eastern edge. I walked, not running, but moving, and I didn't look back at the room or the door or the window. I passed the office, light on inside, and went down the access road in the fresh snow, back up the slope toward the highway. My car was on the shoulder where I'd left it. Snow on the roof and hood. I got in, put the key in, turned it. It started. I pulled onto I-77 and drove north. I didn't stop until I was across the Virginia line and past a truck stop and another 20 miles of empty highway. I pulled into a gas station, bought a large coffee from a girl at the register who was looking at her phone, and drank half of it before my hands had settled enough to hold the cup without concentrating on it. I looked at myself in the dark window beside the register. Pale face, bad skin under my eyes, wrinkled jacket, hair that had been pressed into a corner for 2 hours, the face of a man who had not slept and had good reason for it. But my face, my eyes, the same arrangement of features I'd had yesterday morning. I drove home. 12 hours. Stopped twice. Somewhere around Beckley, I called my mother. Her actual daytime voice, nothing like what I'd heard through the door, just to hear it. She asked how the drive had gone. I said the car broke down. She said there would be other interviews. She was right. I went back to work Monday, opened my software, did my job. Marcus asked what happened. I told him the car died. He nodded and went back to his coffee. I didn't tell him the rest. I haven't told anyone the rest until now. The weeks after were mostly normal. I functioned. Went to work, came home, cooked dinner, watched TV. More or less fine, most of the time. Except my bathroom mirror has a towel over it now. Has had one since the night I got home, when I went to brush my teeth and glanced into the glass, and for 1/2 second saw, or thought I saw, a shape behind my reflection. Smooth, pale, no features. There and then, not there, gone before I could be certain. I covered the mirror. I haven't uncovered it. And sometimes my phone rings late at night, once or twice a week. 1 ring, then 2, then 3. I watch it, and I don't pick it up. It never rings a 4th time. I burned the laminated card 2 weeks after I got home. Held a lighter under it over the sink and watched it go. It took longer to catch than I expected. Then I made my own. 6 rules, plain type. Laminated at the copy shop on Broad Street. It lives in my glove box. I don't stay at highway motels anymore if I can help it. But I keep the card anyway. I don't know what the Hollow Man is. I don't want to know. I only know the rules kept me alive, and I broke some of them, and I'm still paying for that in ways I can't always account for. If you ever find yourself at a motel off a highway interchange deep in the Appalachian Mountains, and the owner hands you a laminated card, read it. Follow every rule. Leave at dawn. Don't stay for breakfast. Don't look back. And don't answer the phone on the fourth ring. It's never good news.